Today I'm going to show you how to make a pretty cool and realistic looking door in 1/35 scale, using a reference picture as inspiration. First, I'm going to make the hinges using 0.5mm styrene offcuts and cutting out the shape of the hinges using a brand new blade on my hobby knife. The screws are made by cutting thin slices of the styrene rod. I use Tamiya extra thin plastic cement to attach the screws to the hinges and all the other styrene bits on this build. In the reference picture, one screw is missing from the hinge, so I'm going to copy that. Then the hinges get that actual hinge part attached using the same styrene rod. As you can probably imagine, it's pretty finicky work. I actually 3D modeled the hinges according to the reference picture. One of the advantages of 3D printing is that you can scale it and print as many as you like and get the same result every time. But to demonstrate, I'm going to use the styrene ones in this project. The 3D files won't go to waste though. I'll probably use them another time, and they will also be available for download on my Patreon. The door is made up of 4 planks, but it can be easier to work with just one solid piece, especially when you're going to carve small details into it, because that gives you a place to hold while working on it. You could also work on a long strip, then cut that into 4 lengths later and put them together, so there's no right way. Now that the general shape and texture are established, it's time to take a closer look at the reference and copy some of the main features that give this door some character and realism. The trick to making things look realistic is to make things look like they do in real life, not the way that you think things look in real life. The difference in surface texture also gives a better looking result, I think, so I'm adding some holes and scratches using a needle instead of just a hobby knife. Now, this is what's going to take this door to the next level, I think, adding some wood knots. Ideally, I should have used oval-shaped styrene rods, but I don't have that, so I have to make do with what I have and cut them into general shapes. But it's still going to look pretty good. Now, take those small styrene shavings and glue them in place, again using the reference picture as inspiration and guide. I know that the knots are actually quite flat in real life, but to make them read better at such a small scale, it can be smart to exaggerate the textures. The knots also need some textures though, so I carve in some on them and going around them, like the wood does around branches in real life. If you think the knots are too exaggerated, you can sand or shave them down. Lastly, I go over them with glue one last time to melt any edges I think are too strong. Using the same technique, I make the rest of the planks. Once the texturing is done, it's a very enjoyable process assembling the rest of the build. Gluing the door and hinges in place is such a treat. So up until now, we have made all of this from just styrene, and I'm very happy with that. But now I need to make the tiny hook lock, and for that I can't really use styrene. Instead, I'm going to use the thinnest wire I could find, leftovers from my latest spaceship build video. Making the parts for this was extremely challenging, I won't lie, and getting good footage was almost impossible. So I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel to make me feel like it was worth it. But the trick was patience and precise tweezers. I had to use superglue to attach them to the styrene. Now the building is done and we can start focusing on the painting. I'm going to use a Bonewhite and a dark brown wash first to establish some color. It might be wise to prime your model first, but if it's a diorama piece that's not going to be handled a lot, Styrene takes paint pretty well and can be painted directly. I let the paint dry completely before I paint on the brown wash. Now I need to bleach the door using white, a variety of greys and a black wash. I build up layers like they are built up over the years in real life. That's why the grey goes on top of the brown. As you can see, I paint it on very watered down. This keeps some of the brown layer below and gives me the opportunity to build up instead of covering too much on the first layer. It's easier to add more than to take away too much. I blend the different greys from light to dark and start to block in the main shapes from the reference. When the wet blending is done, I wait until it's dry, then refine some details using the same greys as before. Now it's time to paint some details. For the rust, I use a flesh color, a dark brown contrast paint and a rust wash. For the green and brown details, I use these colors. I start with the contrast paint and just block in the hinges and lock, making sure to keep within the lines as it were. While that's drying, I'm going to glaze with the green to the bottom planks of the door. Now I'm going to add more contrast and definition by adding more of the black wash to the lower areas and some lighter color on the tops. When you see me waiting with the brush, that's me looking at the reference photo. These small details are what really makes the door, I think. I'm going stronger on the contrast than in the reference photo for the same reason as with the wood knots. It needs to read more clearly at this scale. The contrast paint is dry, so I can start adding some highlights to the metal, starting with highlighting some of the screws and painting on that flesh tone where the rust is lightest. When that's dry, I can tint it with the rust wash. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy painting details like this, and I could go on forever adjusting things, adding edge highlights and refining details. But eventually I need to stop and tell myself it's done. Before I show you the finished piece, I want to thank you very much for watching. I also want to take a moment to thank my Patreon supporters. I really appreciate the support, and it's very nice hearing your thoughts and feedback on work in progress on Patreon. Special thanks to my newest members Dustin Etheridge and Frankenstein B. And here's the outhouse door. Done. Until next time, goodbye.